Hello people, CharmingMan93 here. It's time to do the video about rape culture. Now, let me just give you a disclaimer for those feminists and social justice warriors out there. I hate rape, I do not condone it. I am against it completely, and I believe that they should be fully prosecuted to the extent of the law, and that victims, male and female, should be helped. Now, let's get stuck into it, to quote Bane 6666. Now, rape culture. Why do I think it's phony? Why do I not believe in it? Well, let's look at the obvious, for example. In our society, it's clear as hell that nobody condones rape, nobody thinks it's okay to sexually abuse anyone, be it male or female. They are rapists, that is, are prosecuted to the full extent of the law when they are caught, and just the accusation itself is just enough to destroy a man's reputation. Now, how is that a rape culture? Please tell me, how is that a rape culture? Because even in prison, when the rapist does go to prison, the other prisoners will hate him, and they will bully him and they will beat him up because they're the lowest of the lows. Not even murderers are as low as rapists. So if they're not living in the rape culture, or at least if they hate rapists, because I think rape culture is originally supposed to be associated with prisons. If they hate rapists, then how are we living in the rape culture? Because I can't see it. And also, if you look at the definition of rape, and this is where we run into problems. In English law it is, and this I'm using Wikipedia here, a person commits an offence if he intentionally penetrates the vagina, anus or mouth of another person, B, with his penis, B does not consent to the penetration, and A, does not reasonably believe that B consents. 2, whether a belief is reasonable is to be determined having regard to all circumstances, including any steps A has taken to ascertain whether B consents. Blah 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 blah. And there's a problem here, because it doesn't seem to assume that a man who is forced to have sex, or is by a woman, say if he's tied down or she's threatening his life with a weapon and she sits on him, either on his mouth or on his penis, how is that not rape? That's not consensual. What is that? And what else have we have? Oh yes, we have men who are getting drugged potentially by women so that they can have sex with them against their will, but that's not considered rape. That's another issue I have with rape culture. Now, I read this really interesting article, and it's called The Big Lie of Rape Culture, and it's by Wendy McElroy. Yeah, and I know this is from a libertarian website, and I'm not a libertarian, and it's called the Future of Freedom Foundation. But she raises an interesting point, and I think it's worth pointing out. And it says, finally, good reason to use Hitler in a discussion, and she uses the concept of a big lie, which is a propaganda tool, which was traced back to Hitler, but that's just the background information. She's not necessarily comparing them to fascists. She just says they're using a propaganda tool that they used, which is what rape culture is. And she says the concept of a big lie as a propaganda tool is often traced back to Adolf Hitler and his book Mein Kampf, 1925. In its pages, he accused Jews and Marxists of shifting responsibility for the loss of World War One onto the shoulders of a particular German army officer, and she quotes him, but we don't need to quote that, that's not relevant. And she describes the components of building a successful lie. The lie must be grossly impudent and colossal. For example, the lie that men and women are not human beings who share the same political interests, such as freedom of speech, but are separate classes with separate and antagonistic political interests. Now, that sounds like patriarchy, doesn't it, people? The lie must be frequently repeated because some people believe whatever they hear often enough or from enough people. For example, PC feminists who endorse the idea of a rape culture also interpret everything in society through its lens, from casual glances to the prospect of a nuclear winter. It is a constant explanation. And as you can see, as I will get into a little bit after this, anything remotely sexual, be it consensual or not, is rape in the eyes of a rad feminist. It should make the average person ask, Who would lie about that? It is assumed that women would not lie about rape, and that feminists would not commit the intellectual crime of a mass fabrication about women. After all, aren't they for women? And as we can see, society does tend overwhelmingly to believe the female victim over the male who's being accused, and that's what they're taking advantage of, isn't it? How's that living in a rape culture if women are automatically more believed than men, which I kind of implied already? A big lie must be maintained by the state. For example, tax-funded campuses become places where ideas are stifled rather than explored. In classrooms, only correct discussions occur, and they do so only by using correct words. And this is where this libertarian bullshit about the state happens, but it's not entirely by the state. The state still clearly is anti-rape. Feminists haven't entirely got round to something like that. I think it's just really the universities and the schools doing it themselves, really, in my opinion. But, you know, trying to get people to be taught about it and to believe it, yeah, they've been trying to do that recently. A big lie must impact the deeper strata of people's emotional nature. Few images elicit as much emotion as that of women being savagely raped. That's why "They are coming to rape our women" has been a popular rallying cry to rouse men into battle. Yeah, I guess that works too. Not a lot to complain about there. Everything to agree with, you know. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? They're tapping into an age-old adage, a way to drum up support, because nobody likes that. Nobody likes rape. So even they know that people don't like rape, yet they're still trying to force this concept onto us, and I'll give my opinion on that later. It must be something that many people wish to believe. The gender war has broadened and deepened since the 70s. There is a palpable anger within PC feminism, and within many women who feel oppressed. Whether or not they really are, the rape culture myth appeals to that anger, and that's exactly that. There are loads and loads of women in the feminism movement, especially white women, who seem to be under the illusion that they are somehow oppressed by men. And you always ask them, how are you being oppressed, and they say some bullshit like the wage gap. And when you explain that the myth of the wage gap, they still say, well, I'm still for equal rights. We still don't have rights that you have. I was like, well, you give them the long list of pretty much every right that they have. In fact, including the ones that they have more of, which I've already mentioned in previous videos. And they just huff and puff, go, patriarchy, you're sexist, misogynist, you know. And that's what they appeal to. It's basically confirmation bias, isn't it? A big lie is best expressed in a tone of moral outrage and the name of a noble goal. Both aspects discourage casual critics and allow the liars to vilify any critic who dares to proceed. The rape culture myth is advanced in the name of protecting women, and anyone who questions it is said to be defending rapists, and that's exactly what they do. They do that all the time. Just to even disagree with the notion of it, you're now apparently condoning rape and defending rapists. And bear in mind, to a radfem, every man is either a rapist or a potential rapist. You could see why they found it so easy to spread this bullshit. And now, why do I think that this is a thing? I think it's a way for them to change what consent is, because I watched this video that The Amazing Atheist shared, and it was in Canada, in Vancouver or Toronto, I think. And this woman who writes for The Rebel and does videos for them, she went to a slut walk, and she was talking to this woman, and they had an interview. And then when the woman found out what the interview was really for, you know, for their news thing, and that she found out her views were completely different to her own, she said, "I withdraw consent," even though she'd just given consent. And this is what happens. It's the same with Emma Sulkowicz. These people have sex, or they do something, they regret it afterwards, yet they somehow manage to withdraw consent. But you've already given it, and it's over. How can you withdraw it? Now, I'll link it into this in the description below, because it's brilliant. Because when she points out the stupid logic, she goes, "Well, you're just acting like a 12-year-old," but really, that's just projection, and it pure and simple. It's brilliant. So that's it. They want to change consent. They want people like Emma Sulkowicz and themselves to not feel bad about regretful sex, or to at least punish the men who they had it with. I genuinely try to think in my head why they do this, but it's just incredible, really, you know. And so, really, rape culture then, is it? What does it boil down to? Apart from, you know, trying to change consent, they're also trying to change the law. They're trying to make it even harder for men to defend themselves from accusations. I mean, we've seen it. They're trying to do this, but you know, what can a man do? It's his word against her word, and usually the woman's word is more believed than the man's. Case in point, Sulkowitz and all the others. It's a sad case of affairs. I mean, it's not just me on the internet and others that have been decrying this. The Rape, Abuse and Incest National Network in America has also decried this, and they're saying it's actually detrimental to actual rape victims because it's not caused by cultural factors like what rape culture seems to suggest it is. It's an individual thing. It's a small percentage of men and women, yet they're trying to paint it as if it's a nation, like a culture-wide problem, and it's not. And in fact, rape is going down, and it has been going down in America and the Western world since 1979. So, where have they got this from? It's incredible. Anyway, I could go on, but this is unscripted, and I'm running out of things to say. If anyone has anything else to add, I could always do like another video which is more in depth. I really should have done this more in depth and taken my time, but I wanted to get this out as quickly as possible to just give you my opinion. I think it's bullshit. I think it's damaging to men and women. It's basically a propaganda tool to enforce feminism, to spread it, to change the laws, to shame people, to bully people, to scare people. It's a scare tactic. People are scared of a perceived threat which doesn't exist. And I think it has to stop. I think people have to realise that we don't live in one. We have never lived in one. And until then, this has been CharmingMan93. Like and share the video, drop a comment, subscribe to my channel, and if you've got anything that I can help improve future videos about this subject, please drop it in the comments below, and I will save it to my bookmarks, and I will hopefully make a much better video in the future. This is just a rambling opinion piece, I guess. Until next time, I'll see you later.